Hello, my name's Tim Shoebridge. Welcome to this video about the Waldorf Quantum. It's been a very long time since I last did a video about this synthesizer. It's been at least 7 months. And the reason for that is because I was kind of doing some videos when I was going through it in quite a bit of detail, and it was obvious that the version 2 firmware that was in beta at the time was really going to be changing and improving on a lot of aspects of the synthesizer, not just adding new functionality. So I decided at that point that it really didn't make sense me doing any more videos on firmware that was going to be out of date. I didn't realize it would be quite so long before version 2 became public, but it is here now, and I've been using it since it was released. This video is not going to go into the details of the version 2 firmware. I'm going to pick out a few things about it that I really like, that jump out at me. But other than that, this is just sort of like getting me back into the habit of doing quantum videos. I'm going to talk about the things I like about this synthesizer, and I'm going to be basically sort of like showcasing some of the patches, the presets that I've created for it. I did a count the other day of how many I've got here. Over 130 presets I've created with the synthesizer since I've had it. I've used it an awful lot, but I've tended to use it for a certain genre of music, for a certain sort of requirement. And so I will talk about that as we go through the video. But this video really is just getting me back into the Quantum in terms of doing videos with it. I won't be going into a lot of detail, just discussing what I like about it, picking on a few bits of version 2, and playing you some sounds, and that's going to be it. So I really do hope you enjoy this video. Thanks very, very much for watching. Now, before we get into sort of like any sort of like sound design kind of discussions, I just want to pick up where I left off with the last video I did about the Quantum 7 months ago, where I was really talking about the screen quite a lot. Now, a few people thought I was being rather too negative about the synthesizer when I was discussing the screen. I really wasn't trying to be negative about it. I was just trying to be a bit realistic about it, and give a few suggestions about how you can make your experience with the screen better. Now, a few people said, you've got a problem with your screen, it's faulty. Now, there's one thing that the very helpful guys at Waldorf in the support team asked me to do to sort of like try and see if the screen really was faulty. I just wanted to show you that now, and that is, if you go into the sort of performance section of the synthesizer, and to the XY pad, and if you can do this and move your finger all around the screen, and that little red square never sort of like jumps about or does anything that your finger isn't telling it to do, then that's a pretty good indication that your screen is working as it should do. And my screen is working really very well. One of the things that I suggested in that video towards the end was that maybe Waldorf could make better use of this central encoder here. and button, because there seem to be lots of screens as you sort of like navigate around the functions of the synthesizer, where this really wasn't doing very much. And they have done such a fantastic job. Every single screen that I've come across, you know, if you want to change a parameter down here, for example, then this encoder will change whatever it is you've selected. They've done a fantastic job of making the screen so much more flexible in terms of the ways that you can input values and change values using this encoder here. So hats off to Waldorf for listening, and hats off to Waldorf for actually improving the whole user experience so much in this version 2 firmware. Okay, so the standout headline feature of the version 2 firmware is the FM capability that's been added. I will say from the start that I'm not really a massive fan of FM synthesis. There's so many ways on the Quantum that you can get sort of bell-like tones and very interesting organic tones anyway. But it's a fantastic addition, and I've taken a good look at it, and I'm really very impressed with the way it's been implemented. But I think there's quite a lot there to talk about, so that'll be the subject of another video after this one. But what I want to talk about with this particular video is the particle engine, the sample loading manipulation part of the synthesizer, because it's that part of the synthesizer that really drew me to buying a Quantum in the first place. I'm really fascinated by the ability to take samples of real-world sounds and manipulate them, and then use subtractive synthesis techniques on top of them to sort of like mangle them and change them in different ways, but still have that kind of organic quality still in the sound that you get out of it. So that's really why I was interested in the Quantum in the first place, and it's really nice to see that they've come up with quite a number of improvements with the particle engine in the version 2 firmware. What I'm going to do here is initialize a patch, go to the particle engine, and what we'll do is we'll just load a sample and attempt to loop it so that you've got full sustain and it seamlessly loops around on itself. So within the screen, I'm just going to go Actions, Add, and I'm going to choose a sample. Now, I've chosen one here, I've lined one up ready to go already, because this one should hopefully be one that we can loop successfully. If I just play it for you in the screen, see, it's quite an FME kind of sound anyway. on for a long time though, but let's load it. It's actually it's actually quite long. It's a minute long. So let's edit it and choose a region of the sample to loop. So if I just play it, and so we'll see the sort of the read head go through. Sound is evolving quite a lot in that section, but it's hopefully a section that we can loop. So I'm going to try and loop it in this area here before the sample goes very, very quiet and then changes quite a lot. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose loop mode on, and that gives me like my little looping delimiters. And what I'm going to do is sort of move them into sort of like roughly where I think we could successfully loop this sample, something around that kind of region like that. And then what I'm going to do is just play you that, and let's see how different the sample is at the start of the loop and at the end of the loop, because that's going to really sort of like determine how successful we are at looping it. It's quite a lot different. It's like a bell ringing. Now before version 2, if I wanted to do a looping exercise like this, and I couldn't find from trial and error points in the sample where the loop sounded seamless, and with something that evolves like this, I'm never going to find that point. Then what I'd have to do is go to sort of like the particle engine itself, the granular side of things, because that will allow me to sort of like have overlapping regions. But what we can do now with the version 2 firmware, just with the sample as it is we've got this thing here called crossfade. And what I can do is I'm just going to keep playing the note. What this will do is introduce a fade in at the start of the loop and a fade out at the end of the loop. And now it's completely seamless. It really is as simple as that. This crossfade facility is absolutely fantastic. I'm really very, very happy with it, because it means it's so simple now to take evolving samples that would be difficult to loop otherwise and get them to sound seamless and create pads out of them basically. Other improvements that are in version 2 relate to the zooming capability. It's really handy now to be able to sort of like go in and we can just keep on zooming in. And it's nice to do it with this rotary control that you can push down on here, because the menu stays open, whereas if you're using your finger to touch, then you are closing the menu every time you touch. But by using this rotary encoder, I can keep zooming in as much as I like that, until I get to sort of like the magnification that I want. And we can zoom into, say, the looping region, for example. So that whole looping region now has been zoomed into. You can see here with the little red sort of box exactly the point of the whole sample that we're looking at here in a detailed view below. And what else can we do? We can dive right into the start or the end of the loop, or the start or the end points that we've set for the sample itself. So let's go to the loop start, and it goes straight in there, really close up, so that we could do some very, very fine adjustments and get the sort of like the loop points exactly where we want them. So this is really, really good. And then we've got the ability to actually create our own sort of like selections just by coming into here, creating a selection with our finger, and then we can go zoom, and then we can go zoom to selection and zoom straight into it as well. So really, really handy. Lots of ways to make life much, much less frustrating when it comes to trying to manipulate samples and loop them. So if you're listening to this video on headphones or with earphones or good speakers, then hopefully you can hear that all the sounds that I'm playing to you are stereo sounds. Now for me, and this is a very personal opinion, but for me, stereo in a synthesizer is very important. And I know a lot of people will disagree with that, the same way that a lot of people will say effects shouldn't be in a synthesizer. But for me, very, very personally, I really need and want that stereo sound. And so this is going to sound contentious, but I consider the Quantum to be a digital synthesizer. I know it's technically not, it's a hybrid synthesizer. It's got analog filters built into it. But when you use those analog filters, you lose the true stereo nature of the sound that you're creating. So I tend to choose stereo over analog, and I really don't miss the analog filters at all. The digital filters, the virtual analog representations of filters that are in the Quantum are very, very good. There's plenty to choose from. Now maybe I would miss the analog filters if they had a certain character to them, like a mini Moog filter or an MS-20 filter. But what I find is that the Quantum analog filters are very, very neutral in their sound, and I just don't miss using them. So, I mean, that's not a criticism of the synthesizer, it's just the way I end up using it. Now, if I can summarize my thoughts on the Quantum at this point, having owned it and used it in anger for pretty much a year now, and I want to stress at this point, I'm not getting any favors for doing this video. I'm not getting paid to do this video. These are my genuine personal thoughts and opinions on the synthesizer. I have to say that it's probably been the best investment in my money out of any synthesizer that I bought in quite a long time, because it really does fit an awful lot of the sort of the sound making requirements that I have. Now, it's not going to do everything. No instrument is going to do everything. You know, if you're looking for an instrument that can do all the sample manipulation and can do FM, but also sounds like a warm analog vintage synthesizer, then you're going to be, you're going to be disappointed in the Quantum. I think you'll be disappointed in pretty much any instrument. So the Quantum doesn't do everything brilliantly, but what it does do brilliantly. And for me, if I sort of combine it with some other analog gear that I've got, it's the perfect setup for me. It really is a fantastic synthesizer, and it allows me to not use my computer quite so much, whereas otherwise I'd be using computer software to do the kind of sample manipulations that I do on the Quantum. I can do it on this synthesizer. I've got the physical controls, the hands-on controls. It's a beautiful feeling luxury instrument. The keybed is fantastic. It's just a really fantastic synthesizer. I'm very, very pleased with it. So that's it. That's all I wanted to cover in this video on the Quantum. There will be more videos in the future, and I promise that I won't be waiting 7 months to do those videos. I really do hope you've enjoyed this one. Until the next one, as always, thank you very, very much for watching.